That says live.
Really? According to me, it's still loading.
Yeah, no, we're live.
We are live. Wow, it's so
Hey,
fast on
everybody,
yours.
we're live. We're live. It's alive. It's alive.
It's alive indeed. Awesome. Well, as I always say, happy heresies and welcome to the desert of the real. This is Aeon Byte, our live show, and episode 34. And as always, it's obviously live, but the recording will be afterwards. And for everyone else, we will have the audio version, which I will put out on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and all the podcasters of your choice. I will, of course, be repeating this as the audience starts to come into the chat session. For those of you who don't know, if you have any questions, please write them in caps. Please write them in question marks, and we will, Vance and I will do our best to get them to our guest. And very honored tonight, our guest is Martina Markota, Lady Alchemy. Big fan of your work, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks so much. It's so nice to hear that.
Oh yeah, it's great to have me.
I don't normally see a lot of other esoteric type people that know all the symbolism, so this will be really fun.
Yeah, of course. Yes, I guess the backstory is it was a while ago, and I was doing research for, obviously, like you, I love the Sun Lady and the whole Hermetic, and I saw some of your pictures of the Sun Lady. I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is my template. So then I started following your work, and I'm like, wow, you get this stuff, and you're really into this stuff, and you express it better than anyone, I would say, for me. So you're very Aeon Byte, and glad, of course, I'll always simp for Sophia and the Sun Lady and all that. I admit it. And somebody else who likes to simp for the goddess too is Vance. How are you doing, Vance?
I'm fine. Just waiting for a very interesting evening. Former Rosicrucian here, so hopefully this will jog my memory about all the symbols and stories and alchemical things and so forth.
Awesome. Good to hear. Well, again, the audience is starting to come into the chat room. Again, if you have questions, please write them in caps or put question marks. We will get to them. Hey, Jack. Hey, Brett Perlman there. Hey, oh my God, Van Sachi, how you doing? I see you there too. So awesome. Well, Martina, let's talk about you. You started, born and raised in New York, right?
Yeah, that's right. First generation American, born and raised in New York.
And you were raised Roman Catholic, or what was your religion of your parents?
Yeah, that's right. Roman Catholic, because I'm first generation. My mom and my sister, my father, everyone is Croatian. So if you know anything about Croatians, they're pretty Roman Catholic.
Pretty cool. So when did you decide to go into, you might say, alternative forms of spirituality?
Right.
When did you become a heretic?
Exactly. Yeah. It's funny. I can't pinpoint the date, but I mean, it's been decades. I'm almost 35. So it's since I was a teenager, I've been into alchemy and the esoteric stuff. And I remember the more I started researching, and you know how you get into it. I think they say it in the albedo phase, or the cauda pavonis or something, that there's some sort of, you can get stuck in there and be kind of almost like delusional and feel like too positive almost. And you got to round that out with the xanthosis or whatever. So I kind of did that when I was researching, was like really into it. I really felt like all this stuff, and it was expressing myself everywhere with my family all the time. I'm like, cooking, oh, it's alchemy. This is alchemy. And my family would laugh when I would go, oh, it's alchemy. Because this just became my catchphrase, but calling things alchemy, like cooking and all these various things that I could see the connections. And my mother, being Catholic, yeah, was definitely kind of upset and thought it was heresy. And I mean, you know, there's the study of Kabbalah and all those like different things. And when I would get into something, I remember one time putting, is it Yom Kippur or something, where it's like new beginnings, or it's like new beginnings. And I have found this really lovely thing about it, and I put it on the fridge. I just thought it was really spiritual and beautiful. And my mom's like, why can't you begin to things that I raised you, you know? But I didn't take it as like trying to find other religions. It ended up making me more appreciative of my Catholic faith, but it was less, I call it basic bitch Catholicism, just following rules and doctrines. It was more of like really truly understanding what Jesus was talking about, truly understanding what Christ, you know, and that Christ consciousness is about, and all of those studies. It really, I started to view it, the Catholicism, at an angle in a different way, and have a greater appreciation for it. So yeah.
Yeah, I was, well, Vance and I obviously were raised Catholic too. And of course, I went through the whole thing, First Communion, all the rites and everything else, confirmation.
Yeah.
Were you confirmed too?
Yeah, I
did.
think so. I think I did that a little bit later than normal. I think you do that like when you're a kid, but I did it.
Yeah, I was like
teenager.
22. I was late.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's
I
late.
think maybe a little bit younger. And my mom was, yeah, she was very traditional Catholic. My dad was an atheist, but she certainly believed in the whole ecumenical thing. She didn't have as long as I did everything Catholic, I could play around with the other stuff.
Right. Yeah, I think she now appreciates it and understands it a little bit more, because out of all my like 5 siblings, my mom and I do get into spiritual conversations about God and all sorts of stuff, or Jesus and the Catholic faith and how great it is. So I think she's seen the full circle and appreciates now that I've dove into the study of, I don't know, it's weird. I guess it's spiritual and philosophical. It's everything.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes you can always get into arguments, like you said, the Christ consciousness, how mystical Jesus was to the first century Christians. And then you can always throw things like, well, did you know that Alberto Magnus, Saint Thomas Aquinas' mentor, was an alchemist? And Saint Thomas probably did alchemy, and it was pretty, the sort of even spiritual alchemy was prevalent in the Catholic Church.
Yeah, I mean, I got into not a fight, but I think I lost a friend over it, because she was very Catholic, and she said to me at one point, hey, listen, she saw me take a picture in a Masonic lodge, and she said, hey, listen, you need to cut the alchemy stuff out. It's heresy. I can't be friends with you if you keep doing that. And I was like, I mean, I am Lady Alchemy. This is like something I've been doing for a long time, and I truly believe it's good. And whenever I get a lot of like super Christian people try to say it's demonic or satanic, or I'm following some sort of evil thing, I would like them to point to anywhere, whenever I go through any of this stuff where they talk about anything dark or evil or bad, it's always about the light, you know, God and good things. So as soon as it starts going down a dark path, sure, I'll acknowledge that, but I haven't seen that myself. But no, her excuse was that the papal, how do you say it? It's like papal, they banned it, or they declared it like bad at some point, the papacy. But I'm not so concerned about the Pope as a Catholic, or even the church so much. I'm more into just like the deeper esoteric study of Catholicism.
Right. And who were some of your influences younger and as you were seeking spirituality, whether real or historical? Who influenced or informed your views?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff. What started, people always ask, like, how did this alchemy stuff start? I mean, I studied math. I was going to be a math teacher. And I was also an artist. I took a lot of fine art stuff when I was younger. So I always had an appreciation for like Leonardo da Vinci, he's not just an artist. I mean, he worked for like the government making machinery, and he's a scientist. He was all sorts of stuff. But then I found some weird video and information about him being into the esoteric stuff and alchemy, and how he really yeah, was this like inventor of a lot of stuff that was, I mean, you had to have understood alchemy, then the chemistry of things to really to do what he did. And also Isaac Newton as far as math goes. And he was also a known alchemist to the grave. And I think that if those two really genius people were obsessed with this idea, and my whole life I've always had people like brush it off like it's so silly, like, you know, that's debunked, you know, it's pseudoscience. And I'm just like, okay, you're smarter than Leonardo da Vinci and Isaac Newton, got it, cool. Like, well, if they were obsessed with it till their death, there's got to be something to it. So those two. And then as you study a little bit more, there's I read this book on like Saint Germain. It was really interesting. Nicholas Flamel is always great. Every once in a while, things pop up, and you're just like, "Oh, alchemy! There's an alchemist there."
Indeed, indeed. And when did you decide to, as we get to the union of art and alchemy, or the esoteric, when did you decide or to become more a performing artist?
Yeah, so I was studying math, and at the university, I was also like the lead in all the plays. I always liked art. I mean, I always had the math art thing. And so I remember when I was going to go to college, I was looking at some art schools or whatever, but I realized forcing yourself to do art is, I don't know, I didn't like that. You know, it's like studying it and having to do things like a certain way and whatever. I was like, I don't think that's really my path. I'm a really good math teacher, and I think I would really enjoy that. And it's a smarter choice if you're going to go to college to do something more math or business related instead of like artsy or something. You can always do that on your own, but or take some electives, you know. But yeah, so I always had that duality in me. And when I was studying all the math, I was like doing plays, and so I got that performing bug again. And I would go to the city, and I did like a lot of pinup modeling because I really, you know, have that style and that vibe. So I did some pinup modeling. And with that pinup modeling crew and scene, those burlesque goes, you know, hands in hand with that, a lot of vintagey type stuff. And I like performing more than modeling. It's more dynamic. So I was asked if I wanted to do some burlesque, and I was like, yeah, sure. And I did the whole typical classic burlesque, the really cheesy, like, ta-da, kind of thing. But as I started to do that, I started to miss my nerdy math, weird alchemy side. And I was like, I don't know, there's two separate halves that I needed to make whole. And it just clicked to me that I can become Lady Alchemy. I can bring the alchemy to the performing. And it was great because it's a catalyst for so much inspiration. I mean, we all are aware of like all the imageries, the symbolism, the deep lore that alchemy has. That can be taken to stage and costuming and visuals. Great, like so great. I mean, I'm not a writer, so I can't write a book on alchemy. I'm not you know, an illustrator. I'm not going to make pictures about alchemy, but I'm a performer. So that was my way of keeping the tradition alive.
Yeah, and it's a great one because I mean, even in ancient times, I mean, you like math, you like art, you like spirituality. So like, well, you're kind of a neo-Pythagorean in a way. You probably seeing the universe as this harmony of numbers. And of course, to get into Plato's Academy, I think what you had to know geometry and you had to know music. So this is sort of, you know, the integrity, you know, the whole mind was really somebody who could do that, which would not be me because math is not my thing. So I would have to skip that one. I think Vance, you would be more because you're into math and the occult.
Yep, was my major. So
Oh,
I
nice.
understand the confluence between things like alchemy and math and science and so forth. I
Yeah,
mean,
when I would study calculus and all that, I mean, I was surprised sometimes because I would get into conversations with other classmates. And I remember getting into a conversation with like an atheist, and he viewed math as like proof that like God doesn't exist because we can, you know, it's all in the math. But to me, I was like confused. I was like, to me, the math is proof that something mystical does exist. Like there's something crazy going on, creating all this stuff. So it's interesting. To me, it was definitely seeking deeper into God's like formula and like what he created. So
Yeah, a lot of people think, oh, the universe is mathematical, but actually math is universal. It's a language that we use to model
right.
what's out there, not that the universe is created by a bunch of formulas that we made up. So
Right. And that
we
goes
get
into
backwards.
science, which is what alchemy is, the precursor to science. There
Yeah.
would be no science without alchemy. There'd be no chemistry, alchemy,
Yeah.
without alchemy. And I just find it interesting, the cult or the religion of science, modern science right now, how they use it to like disprove things or disprove mystical things. And I just find it bizarre because the whole premise of science is to take an unknown and have this concept and think, well, we have no idea what this shit is. Let's try to understand it, which is what I think you're saying what math does. There's this crazy world and we're trying to understand it through the math. And that's what science is, trying to understand this crazy world and make sense of it. And it all starts with an unknown. It all starts with something that's not proven. So there's many other things that aren't proven yet, and we'll get to it through science. I don't think that that's the definitive answer if something is real or not.
Yeah, most people don't realize that there's Gödel's theorem in mathematical logic proves that no logical system can totally encompass something that's something that's real. It's every logical system is inconsistent within itself, and you have to have a bigger one in order to solve that, and it keeps going infinitely. So
Oh, I love that. I'm going to look into that one.
yeah, Gödel's G-O the dot umlaut D-E-L, Gödel's theorem.
To me, I think that quantum physics is showing that there's mystical things happening, because there's things that quantum physics is like, okay, all the rules we thought we knew don't make any sense on a quantum level. And, that whole, if there's a tree, I don't know if you know about quantum physics and the double slit experiment, but basically they shoot the particles and it's like, if it's being observed, it acts differently than when it's not being observed. And that shows like there's weird shit happening, or quantum entanglement and stuff.
Yeah, reality is not what we think it is by observing it on the quantum level. I mean, on the macro level.
Right.
And for the audience, again, as the chat room continues to grow, if you have any questions, please let us know. And we will have with us, for those of you who are late, we have Martina Markota, aka Lady Alchemy. So as far as Lady Alchemy, when did this persona or this archetypal image start to come out? When did you decide to embrace it as you were, pursuing a career in performance art?
Yeah. Well, like I said, there was like that duality of like the art and math and the performing in math. And I kind of, it clicked and made sense. I mean, that was around 2010. So 10 years ago, I decided to do that. And I don't know, I created a business, an LLC called Magnum Opus Productions, because it's my great work, and Lady Alchemy works under that. So I just like to have all those little pieces that make sense if you really know what I'm doing. But yeah, I don't know, I guess 2010, I just started to do it, and you just keep snowballing and become more and more in love with sharing the work, the great work, in your own personal way. I mean, I find it fascinating too, because when I first started, it was so obscure and everyone was like, what the hell are you talking about? The artwork was cool, but if I started to get deeper into like what it represents, people are like, okay, like that's a little like too much. But nowadays I'm seeing it get a little more pop. People are really seeing alchemy a lot more.
Really?
Of it. Yeah, I feel like now when I do, like you mentioned the Negretto piece, like there's other people that get it. There's people are like, they understand the symbolism, and that's exciting to see. But some people don't understand the symbolism, and then when I explain it, or they start digging deeper into what it is that I was doing, they're like, okay, mind blown. I just went down that rabbit hole. So that's exciting to do. It's not just about creating something that people can recognize right away and reaffirm what they believe, but to have people, that's the whole point of the tradition and passing it on, is to keep it alive. And you need other people that don't know about it to know about it.
Exactly, exactly. And I like what you said about why you do it. I mean, in a way, it is a form of magic and it's an expression of art. But you say you like to gather the energy of the audience, which any artist does. I mean,
Right.
whether you're a rock singer or a poet, and it's almost like then you filter that energy and you put it back to the audience. So in a way, you are doing alchemy. That's the whole transformation.
Yeah, that's the exciting part too, is that there's so many layers and it's alchemy. It's all alchemy all the time. That's exactly right. I mean, I have noticed other performers, sometimes you get into this. I mean, a true good performer does this alchemy without realizing it. They do exactly what you're saying. They take something, they create something, and it's feeding the audience. It's giving back like all the energy that they're getting from the audience, their attention. Their attention is the magic to work with. And what do you do with their attention? A really good artist tends to like give back, and they go home happy and they're just like, wow, what a great show, you know? So they do it not intentionally, knowing that it's alchemy. It's kind of like math. There's calculus and things happening in the world, but you don't have to know it in order for it to be occurring. But when you do see it, you're like, oh, I noticed what's happening there. But yeah, I definitely look at it as a ritual and as a magical act that when I have the audience's attention, to send like a vibration back out to them. And I think people feel that. I think they really do.
And do you think this can be a negative way? Do you think some artists abuse this energy or drain the energy from their audience in a vampire way? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what the point of like the spirit cooking talk was that we had a few years ago. So I think that there can be magical acts of performances that the audience, unknown to the audience, is probably doing something negative. But it's funny you say that, because in my comic book, that's what's happening. I have these bitches that are taking the audience's energy while I give energy to the audience. So I definitely use that aspect of the positive and negative side of performing, and the magic involved with that.
Awesome. Well, we want to get to your comic book, but more a little bit about your art. And so when you are creating a piece of art, a performance art, what goes into? Do you get inspired? Do you look at old texts? I mean, what exactly goes into? I mean, of course, I've talked. Well, one of my favorite pieces is Negretto,
Thanks.
and I think it's incredible. As we were talking before, I can't wait to see one day to see Rubetto and all those, and see what happens to the heroine, because the ending is pretty stark. But of course, I know that the journey of Inanna and Sophia through the spheres. There's always the underworld, the destruction, the pain, all that stuff, and then there's the But what goes into your thought process of creating this art?
Yeah, it varies. Sometimes it can be a song that I end up just being so inspired by that I naturally start to think of weird things to do with it. Sometimes it starts with the concept, and I find the right song and thing to do with it. I mean, I have one performance that, and costume, you may have seen it, where I'm covered in red roses, and that's my Rosicrucian costume. I'm not a part of the order. I'm not a part of any order, but I liked the concept of just like the roses, and that had it's a rose cross, rosy cross, and so the cross is like the T pose, the human body, and just covered in roses. I even had red hair at the time. So that was just like visually striking, which I felt like could resonate with people, but it had like an undertone of symbolism, if you knew about the rosy cross, and the roses, they symbolize the spirit unfolding and the layers and all that. So that was like, I think, inspired more by the costuming. I thought roses really pretty, and I could do something with the rosy cross. Negretto was originally collaboration with someone that I had a falling out with, but Yeah, we had just like wanted to do something weird, but I don't really like to just do a random weird performance. It has to have something deeper to it. So we created that kind of concept. But for me, how did I put it's like an actor, you know, you have your um what is it called when an actor has like their motivation or something, their intent, what's their intent? That's kind of what I had to do that performance. It was a live performance in an art gallery. So there was an audience there while I did it. And so it was a one time in an art gallery, boom, do what we rehearsed kind of thing. And I never rehearsed it with the paint, you know.
No way. Oh, good. Because I was
Yeah.
thinking is like rehearsal for the audience. I'd like to play some videos, but
Yeah,
this
sure.
one's like 8 minutes long. Is it?
There's
It's
a
pretty-
1 minute version on my website if you want to check that one
Yeah,
out.
let's try it.
Yeah.
Let's try the 1 minute and then you can kind of explain. Do you want me to do it or do you want to do it? I think you can share screen.
I guess I can do it. Sure.
Let's see. That way you can be in control.
lady-alchemy.com is the website. And then let me do a screen share. Is that working? Do you see my screen?
No, I don't. Do you, Vince?
Did you hit share screen
Oh,
yet?
it
No,
said
not
host
yet.
yeah, it says it's disabled by the host.
All right.
What?
So
Ah,
I don't even know how to give you. How do I give you the power? Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna make you the host. So
The power.
yes, now you're the host. Now you have complete power of AM Bite.
Ah,
You can make this your show and talk about anything. I
that's
want to.
so funny. Okay, can you guys see that?
Yes.
yes.
All right, so I'm gonna go to performance art installations. Is this the full one? I don't think so. Ooh, sorry, let me turn this. I have to change this video actually. This audio is a bit harsh in the beginning. But yeah, this is the 1 minute one. All right.
Awesome. And for those of you who will be listening to the audio version, you'll have to go to Lady Alchemy on YouTube and watch. She's got the full one and the minute one. So
Yeah, I would recommend the full one actually, because although it's, you know, 8 minutes long, it's kind of long. It's worth it because the slow buildup really has that impact of like, wow, like by the end of it, you'll be like, oh my God. But it was better in person. It was better live, I swear. It's
yeah,
great.
yeah, I thought it was awesome. And I'm glad you didn't have to, because I was like, does she have to rehearse it every time with that black goo and throwing it up? That can't be easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, we didn't. Sorry, go ahead.
No, cut. Take it all over again
Yeah,
from the
let's try
beginning.
it once again. Yeah.
1 hour
Yeah.
later when you get ready again.
Yeah, no, I mean, we rehearsed it like, because there was a sequence of what happened. So when you watch the full one, you'll see, and it's funny because the beginning of that video is Moonlight Sonata slowed down 800%. So it's really cool if you like can hear it. And it starts out all in the white, and it's kind of like in Negretto. So Negretto is the first phase of the alchemical process. It's a burning, the purging, a blackening phase, the coming face to face with your demons. And so, like I said, we created this like piece, but I was like, this is Negretto. You know, this is how I am embodying this piece. And that was the motivation for me. And that's what it represented for me. And so it started out in the white, but it was kind of about, she came, I say she, Lady Alchemy came up to sit in that vanity and did makeup, put the makeup on, you know, looking at your face. There's a lot of that. There's the corsetry, there's the relaxing. So there was that sequence, and that was meant to be the kind of the material world. You know, it's the material world. It's obsessed with the beauty and the makeup and this materialness. And then what happened was the black started coming out of the mouth. So it comes from within, and it like just started coming out of the mouth. And then when I go to put the lotion on the skin, it was like black. And I just started like the black started consuming me, and I took off all the corsetry and everything, and just got really wild. And then when it started to get weird, the music is actually the internet dial-up tone slowed down 800%. So when you watch the long one, it's really cool. The audio is so weird, but it's the internet, and you can hear that now when I tell you that. But yeah, and then there's just the blackness starts consuming, and that's kind of how it is when you're just so focused on like the perfectness and the material world and the makeup, and then just like to let all of that go and be consumed by the blackness. It was just really empowering, and that's what the piece is about.
Wow. And could you say that it's also sort of like the Jungian shadow? We repress things, we don't look at them, we go about our material life, and something clicks, something happens, a family member or a noise or a sound, or maybe some people it's a tragedy, and all this shit comes up, the darkness, and it swallows us whole, which at the end you're just sort of staring with this sort of demonic look at the audience, like,
yeah, that was part of the sequence of rehearsing too, was just like at the end, just standing there and just looking around at everybody. It was actually a really funny little fun fact is that when I did that, I had like an assistant with a robe ready to like come up and bring me a robe to put on. And I got into that position and stood there and did the thing. And he came up to me, but I was supposed to stand there for a solid like few minutes, and just it's an art piece. So I'm just like standing there, just like this. I was supposed to do it for much longer. And he came up right at that part thinking that was the end. And I go, not yet. And he goes, and he like ran off. So yeah.
Awesome. And any questions from the audience about this piece or anything else, fans, that you see?
Yeah, someone was asking about, pointed out that it was about putrefaction. Is that right? Did you already go over that?
Yeah, the putrefaction.
Right.
Yeah, I think I think that's part of the first phase, because there's like a few different steps, and some of the old alchemy lithographs you can see it, because there's calcination is also one of the first steps of like of 7 or something. I'm not sure if putrefaction is a separate step or if that's part of the first one, but yeah, that's what comes to mind for me. Is all
anything else? Yeah, symbolically or whatever you want to point out, because I know you've already spoken about it. In the last few minutes.
I think that's it.
You think the white is like the virgin state in the beginning? Is that part of it?
Well, the white is actually supposed to be the second phase, the albedo, but the white in this piece, it just makes for a better contrast. But if you watch the full piece, you can see that there's like a beautiful dress, and I actually come on stage with no makeup, and I spend quite a bit of time putting the makeup on, looking at the face, like putting lotion on, and like just being kind of obsessed with the material world. And I think that's what creates the duality, like that great change occurs where it's like that doesn't matter anymore. It's like you're being consumed by this blackness and just coming full in onto it. And just the feeling that you get out of it. And that's the thing about performance art. I think, Miguel, one of your questions was about just performance art in general. And that's what I think it is too. I like visual, I like aesthetics. So yeah, there's that aspect. But I think by the end of that video, the audience gets a feeling of something. And you're just kind of like, wow, okay. And that is, I think, the powerful element of what the Negretto piece does. It kind of makes you go, wow, okay, I feel different now.
And somebody asked, what gallery was it? I saw that.
It was in the video. What was it called? Colony Studios in Brooklyn. Colony.
Awesome. And I think my other favorite one, as I've mentioned in the emails, is, of course, Nephilim. Of course, well, because I, like you, the Nephilim are just so interesting. I'm not going to say good, bad, cool, whatever, but it's the Nephilim. And your performance, I think, is just, it really is amazing. I love it. How did you come up with that one? I guess that one's pretty long, and it's... well, what are you doing? You've got the feathers, and you're doing the dance with the red hair. I mean, you've got the whole Nephilim outfit right there.
Yeah, I think it depends, because I did that for many, many years, and I've had various versions of it. And I have some really fantastic versions that unfortunately I don't have any footage of, because in New York City, performing arts is like, not everything's filmed. Not everyone focuses on that. It's like live performance is what New York is about. And a lot of times I get so focused on my live performance that I haven't bothered to get something filmed. So it sucks. But yeah, I created that one around 2011 because I found out that I have this really rare blood type, the Rh negative blood. And then I found out when I get pregnant that I have to get this like shot if I have like a positive baby and a positive guy. Otherwise my body will physically attack the fetus and kill it, because it's,
oh my God.
Yeah, it's the Rh factor with pregnancy is like really important. And so I was kind of like, what the hell? Like, I thought I was pretty desirable as far as Darwin goes, wide hips, survived childbirth. Like, I thought I had everything like, good.
Except you're a demon.
Yeah. And then except the Rh factor, my blood was like, wait a minute, like, that's not good for procreation. Like, doesn't that mean I'm like not desirable? Like, what's going on here? Like, what is my blood all about? So I started researching it a little bit more, and I found that animals in nature, when those same complications with pregnancy occurs, it's when they're crossbreeding. And I was like, what? Are we two different kind of human beings coexisting and crossbreeding, and no one's talking about this? Like, what's going on? So I started researching more, and that's when I found like the Old Testament, the Book of Enoch and stuff, and they start talking about the Nephilim, or the sons of God and daughters of man, procreating, creating the Nephilim, right? The different hybrid race. And they brought knowledge of alchemy, and I was like, metallurgy, makeup, warfare. And I was like, oh my God, that's me. Like, I am a Nephilim. I'm a hybrid. I have angel blood, So that was my kind of weird artsy interpretation of being like, that's who I am. And then I was like in forums, and I was a part of this, communities and whatever RH stuff. And then I would see stuff about like what you said, is it a demon? And people were saying that they're the Illuminati, they're the, all the evils in the world is because of the Nephilim and everything. And I was like, what? Am I evil? What's going on? And I was talking in forums with people, and we were just talking about how, you choose to be the angel or the demon. You choose good or bad. And so that's what represented that performance. I also had a demon performance. So I have like the angel and the demon, the white feathers and the black feathers. And they have, they're tall, they're giants. I'm pretty tall for a girl. I tend to tower over men. Green eyes, I have green eyes. Fair skin. I was like, oh my God. And they have the red hair, and I dye my hair black, but it's like a brown with like a reddish tinge in the sun. But it's been a long time since I was a purebred, angel. So, I wanted to create physically the like extreme archetype of the Nephilim. So that's why I did the red hair and everything. But yeah, that was what inspired the angel Nephilim stuff.
Yeah, for the audience, check it out. I think it's an incredible performance. I love it. For me, it was two things beyond the hypnotic performance and all that. It reminded me, I don't know if you've heard of the Yazidi. Mm-hmm. They're a very ancient group, Gnostic group, and there is arguments that they are far older than Judaism and Christianity, that they are old.
Is that how
And
you say it? I've always read it and I never know how to say it. Looks
you
like
see,
acidic
I
to
could
me.
be wrong. I could be. I mean, I'm just reading
Oh,
off, but they have in their core myth, they have an angel who rebels against the real God, and he's thrown down to the world, and he becomes the ruler of the go, and he's called the peacock angel. So your feathers kind of remind me, maybe you
oh,
were,
that's awesome.
was it Malek Daos? That's his name, the peacock angel.
Huh.
So of course, if this is true, this Gnostic group, who unfortunately has been persecuted terribly in the Middle East by ISIS and Saddam, they are really ones that came with the original core myth of the Nephilim and the fallen angel and all that. So your performance kind of, it brought it into my head, or you know
That's
what I mean? That's
amazing.
what it touched. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's these stories of these outer worldly beings coming down to Earth and procreating with the human race, and all. I mean, there's in Sumerian cultures they talk about the Anunnaki, and like it's all over the world and different times and places.
Yeah, that is true. It's a primordial myth, like the flood or something like that. And then the other thing too is the song you play, Ellie Goulding. And I remember when that song came out, my daughter, my other, she's 20 now, 22, but she was whatever, she was 12, and she used to play it. I was like, this is a nice bebop disco song. Yeah. But with your performance, I was like, wait a second, this song is really powerful. And when I saw the lyrics, I was like, this is like the Fall of Sophia or a UFO song where the lights are calling her, this woman.
Lights. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank
So-
you, man. That means a lot. Yeah, it's funny to see that performance now, because that was when I first started. It's 2011, and that was the song that was. It's definitely a dated song, so it's like you hear it, it's kind of like, oh my god, that song. But that's kind of what you do with performance too. I mean, I had to do that in a nightclub. I was in a nightclub in Manhattan, so you do something that the audience can be like, oh, this is a groovy tune, but at the same time, throw my weird alchemy and do some subliminal shit.
Oh, Weird Alchemy, right?
Oh, that's fun.
Oh my God.
Awesome. Yes, and great to see Amanda B. Edward Pandemonium is there. Who else? A lot of cool cats there in the chat room. So the other question I had for you, Martina, is the Sun Lady. Why do you feel an affinity to the Sun Lady?
Well, it's actually,
And maybe we
I
could
didn't
share
really
some
know.
pictures of her.
Yeah, I mean, I actually didn't know about it. I only know about that because of you. I saw that come up somewhere. I don't know if someone tagged me or how that still came up, but I was like, that looks like me in that picture.
I'll be honest with you. I saw your pictures. It always, maybe we can show the audience. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, she looks like the Sun Lady in the Book of Revelation.
Yeah.
So when I was doing the show with Alex Rivera, who wrote this book about the Sun Lady in the Book of Revelation, I was like, it's got to look like Martina. So I went to Shutterstock and I looked for a model that looked kind of like you. And then
oh my God, you did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is so amazing. You can always use my pictures anytime you need, please.
Okay,
please,
you
please.
heard it here, audience. I can use it for a show.
I love it. Guys, I have an art Discord too. Let's make graphics for these guys. Let's make some lady shit. No, but actually, yeah, maybe that's something you could tell me and the audience about, because I actually didn't know that much about it. And then when I saw the picture come up and I was looking at it, and then I started getting inspired, and I found other images or videos that I have that could be the Sun Lady. And I was like, I'm the Sun Lady.
The Sun Lady doesn't even know she's a Sun Lady. She's having anamnesis, gnosis, remembrance.
But yeah, what is that about, the Sun Lady?
Well, she in the Book of Revelation, and of course, being raised Catholic, I was raised Catholic. It's not that we don't, it is the end of the world, and all that is not that important as people. So not as much it is with Protestants or evangelicals. But in one scene, there is this lady she's crowned with the sun, and she's standing on the moons and the stars, and she has a child in the cosmic heavens. And then this dragon comes and chases her into the wilderness, and she has to hide her baby. And this baby grows and eventually becomes and defeats the dragon. So that's more or less the story in the Book of Revelation.
That's
Kind of like
actually,
an echo of Moses, right? And the Pharaoh.
Yeah, it's the motif is there
yeah.
Yeah.
also.
Oh yeah.
So, but if you want to show some of the pictures that you have, the ones that you've got the crowns and all that.
Oh yeah, I definitely like to do a lot of the Halo stuff. God, I don't know. Where should I go for that? Maybe Instagram?
I think I remember originally, I remember seeing it on Instagram. Oh, I did a Google search. I was doing Sun Lady and yours came up.
Oh my God, that's so funny. All right. I think I'm sharing it. Let's see.
It shared.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I did a lot of like
There's
the
one.
Halo stuff like here. But I have some other ones that are more sun-like actually. Let's find that. Let's see. Sorry, let's go down here. Yeah, like that one. I mean, the crown too is in a lot of alchemical imagery because it's like Kether, like the crown. They use it a lot to represent someone that has some sort of like spiritual gnosis.
Right.
And the halo is like in art history. They used to do in the Renaissance painting gold leaf halo type thing, and it's meant to be a halo and like reflective light and just have it's meant to be like an aura. So I like to use a lot of that imagery to create something like more than human, something more spiritual and stuff. So the crown and the halo is in a lot of like those alchemy lithographs and stuff.
That's something that's pretty prevalent in Catholicism, but not in Protestantism. They dumped all the halos and crowns, didn't they?
Oh wow, I didn't know that. I don't know Protestant that much.
No, it just occurred to me. I never thought about it, but
Yeah. Huh, that's interesting. Yeah, and I think like what 12 stars around 12 is always an esoteric number too. The 12 disciples, 12 the horoscopes, like everything. So
yeah, I've seen pictures of Gnostic Sophia with that symbolism as the stars and the crown.
Yeah. And she's still prevalent. And I mean, she obviously came through in Greek Orthodoxy. Catholicism pretty much washed her away. And interesting also, too, that folk magic, Hermetic folk magic, actually came through the United States even in the 16th and 17th century. You have like people with Hermes Trismegistos written in like the United States and the country and all that. So this stuff, it definitely worked. And what would you say are are there any goddesses or female figures from the Bible that speak to you, Martina?
yeah, now so I have also, I think I went past it in there. I mean, I'm Catholic, so I love the Virgin Mary, right? That's something my mother has always been like, pray to the mother, pray, for things, not for things, but you know what I mean. But I do depict that sometimes, and I will have people say that that's like heresy and everything, or blasphemy or something. But now you have to understand in the performing art scene, a lot of these people are not very religious. They find that very conservative. They find it to be conservative. They're very anti. And in the art scene, they have been doing like anti-religious stuff for a long time. I mean, since the '60s, it's trendy to bash Catholicism and stuff like that. So I've worked with performers that dress as like nuns, and they'll do sexual acts as nuns and do something like and then there's fire or whatever. I mean, really trendy, right? Like, oh, edgy. So when I do it, I'm doing it out of adoration. I'm doing it out of like, I just see the glory of it, and I want to kind of like Queen Queen Elizabeth I. She did something similar, the Virgin Queen, where she kind of rebranded herself with the pale skin and this aura and this really religious type of like divine presence to make her a little bit more untouchable. And that's kind of what I do with my costumes and why I do it. So I do it not to blaspheme. I do it out of adoration.
Yeah, and also it should be noted that Queen Elizabeth did participate with John Dee in alchemical experiments. She was very much into alchemy and math and science, but she had a kingdom to run, so she had to do it very, very part-time. But
Wow,
I think some have said that was a real passion, was science and alchemy.
that's interesting because that's the one royal that I've actually always had an affinity for. And that's my point too, is why I do the costuming like that is like, no, I want to do what Queen Elizabeth I did, which is make yourself this divine, presence. So yeah, that's what I try to do.
Yeah, it must not be easy because in your circles, and I know you said something, I think the other day on Twitter, you said something like, I can't win. The right sees me as a heretical witch, and the left sees you as some crazy conservative with weird spiritual ideas. So you're in a way, you are Gnostic. You're just caught in no man's land in the middle.
Exactly. Thanks
So,
for seeing that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's also the same thing where, okay, so I'm not a feminist by any means. I think that, the duality is important, the masculine and the feminine. It's like the middle pillar ritual. You got to balance the two aspects of the light and the dark. So the balance is really important. And I think feminism goes overboard and does too much feminine. And then there's like on the right this kind of aspect of bashing feminism so much that anything feminine or pro womanly is considered feminism, and they freak out about it. And so yeah, I do appreciate feminine goddesses. There's Isis. I love the what is it, the tarot, the high priestess. I always love that. And I love like these feminine aspects that are just like the pure female archetype. And I think it's really important. I don't think we should forget that and go to any of the extremes. We need to have that balance. And I mean, I'm a woman, and that's what Lady Alchemy is portraying, is the feminine archetype. So I try to embody that.
How about Lilith? Have you ever, do you know who Lilith is in the ancient
Yeah.
stories? And have you portrayed Lilith on stage or?
I have not. I am familiar with the story, but that's not in the Bible, is it? Where did the Lilith come from?
No, it's like
well,
Miguel,
it's
you better help me
basically
here.
like this. Yeah. If you read
Jewish
the book
lore,
of
right?
Genesis, there's actually two creation accounts. One, it says where God said, I made man and woman at the same time. Then suddenly it switches
Right.
in chapter 2 where it says, well, I made man because I was lonely. I made man, then the animals. And then because Adam is being all whiny bitchy, he's like, well, let me find you something. And he gives them Eve.
Right.
So he creates Eve. So the rabbis were, wait a second, there's two creation stories. So what happened in the first one? So they assumed that Adam actually had a first wife, and through oral lore they decided, well, this wife was too powerful. She didn't want to do, she wanted to have sex on top. She didn't want to do missionary. She was too
Is that really what
that's
this,
what the rabbi said, so that Jewish women would be good. And so she was kicked out of the garden, and she became the mother of demons. She was so powerful, she became this mother of demons and bred with other demons and so forth. So, and many legends came from it.
is this from like Dead Sea Scrolls or some sort of other like non-canonized?
Yeah, this is rabbinic oral lore. So you won't find, you'll find it in like the Zohar,
Okay.
and some other of the letters, but obviously you won't find, I think in Isaiah it does talk about Lilith. There's one passage with Lilith, but that's about it. It's pretty much all oral.
Yeah, I've heard that, but I've heard it in the she's like bad. She's the bad lady or something. But it's interesting to see that it could be interpreted as different, something different, not necessarily bad.
No. Any other questions you see from the audience, Vance?
Yeah, I've got a bunch buffered up. Let's pick one. Entheogens, have you had any inspiration from those? You know what I mean? Mushrooms or any, psychoactive substances?
Yeah, I mean, so when you study alchemy, from what I have read, they say to keep a clear mind and don't do drugs, because you gotta have a clear head for that. I think that is good advice, but sometimes there can be some catalysts that kind of trigger those things in the brain. I've done shrooms and I felt it was a magical experience. I wouldn't do it again. I think you have to be ready. I think that's what they say about the great work too, is that it can drive you mad if you're not ready for it. So it's not something I would recommend to force yourself into any spiritual experience. But yeah, I think also Aldous Huxley explained shrooms as seeing a flower or like a plant for the first, like being like Adam and Eve, and like being Adam and seeing a plant for the first time. And that's definitely how I felt about it. It's like you see something and it's like you're the first human to experience that, and it's like a really magical experience for sure. And I think I bought a bunch of, after I did shrooms, I bought a bunch of like magic and religious books after that. I did. But yeah, there's other stuff. I mean, I like marijuana, but I think it helps me just think in a different way. Possibly spiritual, helps me create performances. But yeah, people are saying other things too. Like people talk about ayahuasca, talk about other things. I don't think you should be dependent on that to get a spiritual experience, but I think it can aid to get, maybe hit other levels or to tap into the brain in a different way that you haven't accessed or something.
Now, somebody wanted to know if you read any of Gary Lockman's works, like specifically Dark Star Rising. Have you ever heard of that one?
No, I don't know that one. I should look into some of that stuff. I'm gonna write that down.
Oh, there's so much. There's so much.
Because I get stuck in my same kind of go-to. I mean, we all know like the Emerald Tablet, and I mean, I like Manly P. Hall, The Secret Teachings of All Ages.
Oh,
A
yeah.
really cool book of that. It's a lot of really beautiful pictures. I like Israel Regardie, The Golden Dawn. I mean, it's kind of really like not something that someone's like, let me learn about alchemy, and you open it up and you're like, what are these weird symbols and things? What, I don't get it. Like, but if you know about that, you can see the connections, and you're like, okay, lesson one, the elements and the symbols and the connecting of all of the things, it makes sense. So I like that. It's very dense.
I studied chemistry quite a bit in high school and college, and it ruined me on alchemy because every time I see alchemical things, I think of chemical things. So it just messed my mind up, and I never really was attracted to alchemy because of that, as far as the actual practice with the,
Yeah, I never took chemistry really that much outside of high school, but I would find studying organic chemistry interesting. But alchemy is like studying that in a like weird, like I said, the Catholicism in a sideways kind of way. But I do think that I remember reading in old chemistry textbooks, they would talk about the ether, or the ether, like the energy.
Oh yeah, luminiferous ether, or the
Yeah, and the chemists and chemistry used to study that and believe in that kind of ether energy, and then they took it out, which is weird. They stopped teaching about that.
And Oswald wanted to know what your most bizarre burlesque experience was.
Oh my God, someone has asked me that before too, and I have to. I mean, I would just say it's probably witnessing other performers, because there's some wild shit people do. Like if you think my Negretto piece is like, she's a weirdo, I mean, like I said, there's people dressing up as nuns and doing sexual acts, or like
that's burlesque.
Yeah,
it was just the
really?
tassels and the corsets and
right. So there's something called like classic burlesque, and then there's neo burlesque. It's more, which I consider myself more neo burlesque, even though I do have like some classic stuff, visuals. But that's why I do kind of weird things, or my costuming will be whatever. But yeah, there's neo burlesque where people do just weird things, but it's in the genre of burlesque. I mean, I've seen people like defecate on stage and do things like that.
no way. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, like they said, Frank Zappa did that. Supposedly.
That's some alchemy. Frank
There's
Zappa did
that's
that?
some alchemy. They've pulled things out of their bits and stuff on stage. Like a clown is like just pulling down there, just pulling that handkerchief.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that stuff. So I would say that's probably weird. I've seen really strange. I mean, my world was wild, wild.
What's
So
the definition of burlesque? How would you define it?
right. So that's interesting because I feel like it's changed so much. Like it used to be that vaudeville time, like it's part of vaudeville. So it's actually comedy. Burlesque is supposed to be kind of part comedy. But then Sally Rand and stuff started doing what I do is a little bit more like beautiful and it's like magical and pretty stuff. But it is supposed to be like satire. There's comedy. It's definitely giving like the finger to like the man and the status quo, which I think is kind of crazy because I got blacklisted for not being status quo. And I think that they're all pretty, like you have to follow in line with the SJW kind of thing nowadays, which is so anti-burlesque to me. It's like burlesque is supposed to be the underground joint that you go to see something really inappropriate and like shocking, just like I said, there's political conversations in burlesque acts, but it's all satire. It's poking fun at something. It's making fun of the government or the status quo or whatever's going on. And they're not doing that. If you do that, God forbid be a Trump supporter, then like suddenly you're not allowed in the community.
Oh, that's heresy.
Yeah, I think
Polarized,
it's interesting. Yeah, as I said, I think it's terrible what happened to you, and I think even if you switched it around, let's say the burlesque suddenly became conservative or MAGA, and
Yeah.
you happen to be a liberal, it wouldn't have been fair to gang up on you and say, well, she's a communist. You know what I mean? We're supposed to be seekers and artists. We're supposed to be looking for what's permanent. We're supposed to be expressing life. We're supposed to not get stuck on the temporal of what our politics. I mean, on this show, and Vance knows, we've had we've had Trump supporters, we've had left wing Antifa, we've had every spectrum, but what brings us together is we want to learn about the Hermetics and the Gnostics and the bigger questions in life. So it's
and
it's
that's
a pity that that's not the art world anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, I being in the art world and knowing that they're all pretty left wing, I've always been friends with people knowing that I probably don't agree with them on topics or things, and that's what I assumed would happen with me. Is go, oh, she votes that way. That's interesting. Didn't know that, but like, what does that have to do with my art or me as a person?
Nothing. And it's interesting because one of my wife's best friends, who was also our babysitter, she was a burlesque dancer. She is a burlesque dancer.
Oh, wow.
So my wife, of course, because she was our babysitter, my wife would go to the show with her, and I had to stay with the kids. So my wife would see the shows, and then my wife was doing, I think, after our first child, she was doing pole dancing, and it was great. But then she got pregnant like 8 months later, and pole dancing went out the door with 2 kids. But unfortunately, the same thing happened. My wife leaned to the right, her friend leaned to the left, and now they have a very tense relationship.
Wow.
And it's unfortunate that these things have to draw us apart. I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, I think nowadays we're all so used to being around them, but they're not used to being around us. So it's a different dynamic.
It's like there's a huge wind that's blowing. It's trying walking against that wind, and you're in trouble. It's a huge wind. I just wonder where the fan is.
Well, that's the demonic forces at work is blowing that fan, because I truly do think that there's something going on with trying to this divide and conquer shit.
Right. I think
that's
so
a term we use a lot, divide and conquer. That's how they win. This, Paul talks about spiritual wickedness in high places, keep us all fighting and torn apart, and they can just feed off of us like the archons.
Yeah. And that's that energy when we're talking about the performing, like there's something about it. I don't know. And in my comic book, I turn it into actually feeding on their souls and consuming their spirits. But there is something about degrading someone's like soul through performance ritual, or building up their soul through performance ritual. But same thing going on with the politics or whatever who's in charge, because it's like, what's the purpose of splitting us up and getting us fighting about everything and arguing on Facebook all the time and in families? I mean, I think even right now, that dinging that you heard was I had to turn it off. Was Facebook? It's probably because my mom and my brother were at it. Because my mom saw something about, because I've talked to her earlier about like something political, and said, I can't believe my brother liked that post, and I have to say something. I said, oh God, don't get into it, because you don't want to fight. I'm the mother. He has to remember, the things that I say, and it'll click to him one day. So it's like they're all fighting. Like, what are they getting out of having our family fight, having other families fight? Why?
It's bad. It's bad. And changing topics a bit, have you ever done an alchemical experiment?
Oh,
You have
like
lead to gold, or?
right. So as you know, I love that I'm talking to people that know about this stuff. Alchemy has both the inner work and the outer work.
Right.
So the outer work is the chemistry, the physical laboratory work. But they have that phrase, that Latin phrase. What is it? Lege, religare, ora et vienes, or something. So it's like read, reread, meditate, pray, reread some more, and you will discover it. So, and they say that you shouldn't do laboratory work until you're ready financially and spiritually, because I guess it requires a lot of dedication and time and equipment and stuff. So I've always been a lot of times focused on the inner work and just doing my studies and doing that. But I've done a basic distillation before of water, and it was really fun. It was a cool experiment.
Awesome. And what spiritual practice do you have beyond expressing your art?
Say that again?
What spiritual practices or spiritual tech do you use?
Right. Well, I mean, like I said, I like the Golden Dawn. So, and the basic high ritual magic, which that's what Mass is. Mass is high ritual magic. It's awesome. So.
And it's alchemy, the body of Christ. That's an alchemical experiment right there.
And again, the energy of the congregation. There's stuff happening, man. It's totally alchemy. It's a magical ritual. And that's also when they say, oh, heresy. I'm like, you do realize that like the three magi's came to Jesus' birth. Magi's, ritual mass. It's
Persian magicians.
Yeah. So, so I'll do the LBR, the Lesser Banishing Ritual, the Pentagram. It's a big thing. Stuff like that. Like I said, Middle Pillar. It's kind of where, as far as I've gotten, because I tend to be like a perfectionist. So I sit in the same realm and try to perfect that over and over again before I try to like move on to other things. So I tend to get stuck, which is why you were saying, oh, I can't wait to see your other ones after Negretto. And I haven't gotten there yet. Honestly, I feel like I'm still spiritually in Negretto because I have constantly bad, crazy shit happening, and I'm always purging. My blacklisting was a purging of the impurities of the people in my life that clearly were not my friends or coworkers or anyone. So that was like a big purge, and it's still happening. I'm still in Negretto, so I can't even think of the next phase until I get there. I hope I get there. I feel like Albedo would be fun to be in. So I'm still constantly in Negretto. It sucks.
Have you had mystical experiences before?
I mean, when I read about alchemy and you'll stop and read a paragraph and you have to stop and think about that, for a while. It's not like just something you could breeze through like a novel. But whenever I do read through alchemy and do these things or the rituals or something, I think the point of it, as well as like perfecting yourself and your soul, I think the trick is being present, being in the present moment. See, now I'm just even reminding myself about being present. I'm doing it now. Because earlier it's like you're in your same kind of routine, the autopilot. You're in autopilot. But I think that's the spiritual moment for me, is when you remember to be present. You could slow down time. It happens to me on stage. Because I get really like anxious and stage fright, and then once you hit and you're on stage, everything's really clear. You can see everyone's faces. Time slows down. It's a spiritual moment for me.
Wow, that's amazing. And Vince, any more questions from the audience?
Yeah, here's one that just popped up. In your Golden Dawn practice, do you praise the angels, or do you know if the Golden Dawn practice deals with angels?
Yeah. Again, this is in my comic book, but yeah, part of the LBR in the Golden Dawn, the high ritual magic is you summon the archangels. So there's the Miguel, Raphael, Gabriel, and is it Oriel? I never know how to say his name. Uriel?
Ariel?
Uriel.
Uriel.
Oh, Uriel, yeah.
So yeah, there's the archangels, and you have them at your four corners, and you visualize them, and you know, they have their properties, their attributes. There. So.
There's sigils too, aren't there? There are
Yeah.
certain the angles and so forth that are related to angelic.
Yeah, there's a lot of associations. The elements, this look for, you know, north, south, east, west. There's colors. There's yeah, there's sigils.
Oh, good, good.
And how do you see the universe? Do you see it as the Catholic shows us with earth, heaven, purgatory? Do you see maybe, do you think there's reincarnation, or what is your cosmology, Martina?
Oh man, that's intense. Yeah, I mean, I think we have this idea of it when we're young, but I've tried to kind of, I don't know if you can phase that out of your head or not pay attention to it. But I think there's something out there. I do believe in a little bit of a reincarnation. You know, I talked to my mom about that, you know, spirits and souls, and, you know, when people die, they lose like, what is it, 21 grams or something, and spiritual things happen when, you know, my mom works in like old care, old people and stuff. I don't know what it's called, nursing homes and shit. So we have those conversations about the elderly and like death and stuff and stuff
Ooh,
that she's
yeah,
seen.
nursing home in New York at this time. That's bad.
Not good.
But yeah, so there's definitely something. I mean, I don't picture it the way that atheists think we picture it, like fluffy clouds, a god and a gate or something, a man with a beard. Like, no, let's no. It's hard to think about for me, because if you're familiar with Carl Sagan would talk about it. There's something called flatlands, you know, like flatlands. And it's like in a 2D world, how can they interpret this like three-dimensional object? And it's just like they can't comprehend it in their world, because they know 3 dimensions, they know 2 dimensions. So I think that that kind of stuff and God and all that is like in other kinds of dimensions, which we can't humanly fathom, like understand it properly. So I'm kind of like, can't understand it. It's something crazy in this dimension. I don't know how to describe it.
But I mean, if you were, let's say you're talking to an atheist, do you have arguments against it? I mean, like, for example, Vance brought Godam's theorem. That's one way to prove it.
Gödel,
Gödel, sorry,
Godel,
yes,
with the
yes,
O
I'm
with the
misplaying. And of course, you've got, yeah, out-of-body experience, near-death experiences. There's supernatural things. I mean, do you have any arguments against atheists if you're talking to one?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking to your buddy there.
Yeah, Vance has
I'm just like
plenty
sitting
of
there with,
arguments. Vance has about 5. Yeah.
yeah, no. I have had arguments with atheists in the past. I mean, especially if you're trying to like date one, which I've dated someone that was like an atheist, and became really big fights. But yeah, I don't know. They think that it's like just your brain triggering, doing just things, neurons firing or whatever. But when you were saying all that stuff, it just reminded me about spiritual experiences of like the outer body experience, or like astral projection and stuff like that, which I think is very real. I haven't done that other than lucid dreaming, which I think is pretty close to astral projection. But that would be a great kind of thing to try to do. I've tried to do that before, but I think smoking marijuana stops your ability to do that, because you don't get the like REM sleep or this, I don't know. Well, you can't do drugs when you're trying to do spiritual work. It can mess things up. But yeah, I certainly believe that there's a lot of power in like astral projection. It's very real. I think the government even tried studying that at one point. I think they still might do.
They still
Oh
do,
yeah,
yes. The Russians
Ingo
and the
Swann, right?
Americans. Hmm.
And the remote viewing and Ingo Swann and so forth. They
Right.
were
Yeah.
doing all that.
Yeah.
Yes. And they had very good effects, very scientific. They could
Mhm.
see into the Russian base and know what the guy was drinking and got it 100% right. So it was there's plenty of it. So why don't we talk about your comic book? Do you want to show us some of your art, your work on the comic, or tell us about your project, Lady Alchemy, the comic book?
Yeah, sure. I'll show you some actually an exclusive. I got something colored. I haven't signed the colorist yet, so I didn't want to post it, but I'm just so excited about how it looks. But yeah, so I got blacklisted as a performer because of my politics and stuff, blah, blah, whatever. And then Lady Alchemy was canceled. She died. So it was very upsetting to me. And then there's something going on in the comics industry. I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but it's called Comicsgate. And basically there's this division that happened with some comic book pros and a lot of fans because the DC and Marvel started to interject a lot of SJW stuff into their comics, changing already established characters, making everything pretty SJW. And it really pissed off a lot of people, pissed off a lot of fans and some comic book creators. So some of the creators went on their own and started doing Indiegogo campaigns and some pros. And I mean, even Van Skyver's raised like, I think over $2 million, or I don't know, he's in the millions that what he's done on his own outside of DC and Marvel, just through Indiegogo and stuff. Yeah, I got involved with it. Actually, it started way back in 2010, where I always envisioned Lady Alchemy as a comic book character because I like those like sexy 90s babes like comics, Witchblade and all that stuff, Fathom. And I always envisioned myself like Lady Alchemy runs around in the middle of the night in costumes and is, has physical abilities, she's a dancer, athletic, all that stuff. And I just thought it was super comic booky and I wanted to do it. And I met someone that takes like real life people and makes them comic book characters. I talked to him like, yeah, Lady Alchemy is totally a comic book character. And he said that it would cost like 10 grand because you have to have like the inker, the colorist, the letterer, like all this stuff and I was like, well, I don't have 10 grand to spend on comic books, so that's never happening. But when Comicsgate happened and there was this, people that had the same views as me, so I didn't have to worry about being canceled in the art scene, and there was a way to fund it, and I went in on that and created Lady Alchemy comic book, which now keeps Lady Alchemy alive, and I get to tell my story. So it's been really fun, and basically Lady Alchemy is just like me, is a performer in the city and works at this nightclub, wants to be a star. And there's other people. The venue is crazy. It's like Studio 54, but today. That's what I always explained the venue that I worked at. It's legitimately like today's Studio 54. It's just a wild place. Anybody who's who like knows about it, but it's still like underground where it's not like this mainstream thing. Celebrities go there. People are dying to get in. You can't get in if you don't like look cool or won't spend enough money or something. It's totally Studio 54. Drugs, all sorts of crazy shit going on. The performances are wild. That's why I'm talking about people pulling stuff out of orifices or defecating and stuff. I was like, yeah, there's crazy shit going on out there. So it's really a crazy setup for a comic book character, being this performer in this crazy nightlife scene with costumes and stuff. And it's based off some real experiences. And there's these characters that are some bitches and they do this dildoing nun scene and their energy
Where that came from.
and the energy of of the audience that they feed to the audience, it gets consumed by this character, so older woman called Vinia, who I looked up demonology stuff about Vinia or Vine, and it's some Catholic demonology where I guess it's a demon that can take people's souls without permission. And there's a lot of cool stuff to it because I didn't want names just to be random. Like, let's pick a name, Mary. You know, it's. I was like, no, she has to have a good meaning to her name. So I think it really fits with her character. And she can like hunt down witches and things like that, which alchemy, witch, whatever. And so I think it really fits. And she's able to consume people's energies from these demonic performances and stuff. And then I perform, Lady Alchemy performs, and it was my fallen angel performance. And it does something different to the audience, and it feeds them. And so Vinia is interested in me and why I have this power, sniffing me out. And when she offers me an opportunity to perform for, I say me because, like, you know, it's like so confusing, all these identities. She offers Lady Alchemy an opportunity to perform for like the elites, like world leaders, like Illuminati type kind of events. And then when I leave the club, I get jumped by some men in masks, and they try to take my blood, and they start saying something about Nephilim or whatever. And the next day, I go to a bookstore, a disheveled bookstore, and I meet this old man named William, who is modeled after my ex-step-grandfather who died. He was very dear to me. Old man named William gives me this book, The Mutus Liber, and that's where I start learning about the Nephilim and who I am, and learning how to do the rituals and summon the archangels and fight these demonic powers in the world. And I also go upstate, because I'm upstate right now. That's where I grew up, and it has a different vibration. The city has like advertisements, propaganda. There's like this just energy around all the time trying to sell you something, consume you. And then when you go into nature and you have the vibrations of nature and God, it's like that's when you can find yourself and become whole again without those distractions. So that's what the book's about.
You stop at the Red Apple Rest, right?
The Red Apple what?
The Red Apple Rest. You know that's up on Highway 17 near Bear Mountain.
Oh, I know Bear Mountain. I used to run cross country there. No, I haven't been to the Red Apple thing. No, I'm from like the Rhinebeck area.
Yeah, I'm from Jersey originally. So
okay.
I don't know. Albany.
Yeah, no, there's like, yeah, Albany. My sister lives there. Yeah, it's like near like Woodstock. So I know Bear Mountain, but I don't know it that well. I just ran cross country there in a race. Yeah.
We used to have a zoo. They actually had bears in a zoo there many years ago.
Mm. Yeah, we have. Yeah, we used to. I think there were some zoos that closed down up here too.
Yeah, somebody was asking Brett Perlman. It was actually I was thinking too. Have you read Alan Moore's Promethea, Martina? Very similar characters.
Yeah, I think I've been told about that it's very similar. Which is funny. I love that name because I used to use a lot of that stuff back in the day. Actually, back in AOL. Remember we had AOL Instant Messaging?
Oh my God, yeah.
A dial-up internet. My screen name in junior high was Pandora's Box 832. And I remember everyone used to be like, what's Pandora? What's Pandora's Box? And I used to be like, okay, well, let me tell you. And they're just like, okay, that was a really long story just for a screen name. I was like, I don't know. It's always yeah. No, but I have been told that actually. Let me.
Yeah, you should check it out. The character you would love her character a lot, and there is a lot. It's very much about Hermeticism, Gnosticism, Kabbalah, and alchemy. There's this heroine that reincarnates throughout time and fights the bad demons who are trying to destroy the world. So,
that's interesting.
And the costume's the same. You want to show us some of these exclusive things?
Yeah.
Oh, before that, let me a little secret too. I don't know if you want this as a plot plan, but in the book of Enoch, the twist is that God was supposed to have wiped out the Nephilim in the flood, but guess how the Nephilim gets through? Enoch is part Nephilim. Because there's a scene where Nephilim, where not Enoch, Noah is part Nephilim. I'm getting
really?
Yeah, there's a scene where his dad, as a baby, he's got the silver blue eyes and the hair, and his dad goes, I think he might have Nephilim blood in it. So that's how they survive. Just in case if Lady Alchemy needs like how did the Nephilim survive?
Right. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to it, which is why this is just so exciting as a comic book or artwork in general performing, because it's just, there's layers of just deep lore mythologies that it's
Yeah,
awesome.
you could do a series. So,
Yeah.
so show us some of the art.
Yeah, let me share my screen again. Well, this is my campaign. And this is just some generic, not generic, it's just like a character thing. And I have part of the Corpus Hermeticum on here. Seekest thou for God, thou seekest for the beautiful. One is the path that leadeth unto it, devotion joined with gnosis. Such are the things that men call good and beautiful, things which we cannot flee or hate. The hardest thing of all is that we've need of them and cannot live without them. So yeah, I like a lot of quotes from the Corpus Hermeticum as well, especially in regard to beauty. And that's kind of what I do. I found this quote like 10 years ago. It's actually by a German mathematician. But when I read it, I went, huh, that's kind of what I do with Lady Alchemy. And it's been my slogan ever since. It's uniting the truth with the beautiful. So I was like, I like that. Uniting the truth, the great work, with the beautiful, you know, performing and stuff.
Excellent.
So,
Yes.
yeah. And that's what this mathematician said he does. I'm like, oh, I love that. So yeah, I like to kind of show that like there's godliness and beauty. So that's kind of what I'm doing. And when the right kind of attack me for stuff in the, you know, they kind of lump all this Lady Alchemy stuff in with like stottery or like internet, you know, sluts or whatever. And I tried to explain that there is beauty, godliness and beauty, and that's what I'm about. It's not about like superficiality, which is bad. You know, you don't want extremes. You don't want obsession over beauty, but there is goodness in beauty.
How would you define beauty? If somebody says, "What is beauty?"
Oh, that's a good question.
I mean, mine is sort of and this is the the kids are playing. I think what the Neoplatonists define beauty is there is a multiplicity in the universe. An artist is able to create a unity of that multiplicity, and in that unity, there's a harmony that points to the transcendent, and it points to something beyond that we remember, a home,
Right.
state of mind. So that to me is that, but that's the Neoplatonist view, and of course,
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's like beauty in nature. You know, like there's a flower is just beautiful. A sunset is beautiful. And I think that the human body is beautiful. I mean, I'm all natural. I don't do plastic surgery or any of that. You know, a little bit of makeup and stuff, whatever, some hair dye. But it's not meant to be the superficial adoration, obsession over beauty, but just more so like a Greek and Roman sculptures where they're just like have this appreciation for what God can create, and humans are beautiful. So,
I think it's anything that's uplifting, you know, that fills you with light and happiness and love, makes you happy to be alive, you know, that
right.
kind of thing. And it's different for everyone, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, these are just character sketches. This is a little bit about the Mutus Liber, which I actually have seen and touched the real Mutus Liber in real life. So
wow.
it's a little fun thing that happened after I wrote this, so, or created the story, excuse me. I have a writer. Yeah, these are some pages quickly going, that's on the rooftop. And then I'm going to the club, and there's like a lot of propaganda in the city. What does it say? Selling the future says is on one of the ads and stuff. Getting ready in the nightclub. There's that halo and the crown. Backstage, I love this shot. Just all the different characters. This is what it was like backstage. It's all these various characters. And then you have the girls doing their demonic performance. And Vinia kind of taking that energy from that performance. And then you can see on the corner here on the bottom, I'm starting my performance there. And this is like a beautiful page I love of my fallen angel performance. And my artist watched all those videos and saw those pictures. And I think he did a really good job depicting in one page what my performance was about. it's cool. And then this is where she like ascends. And there's like an ascension part of the fallen angel performance. So it's pretty cool. And when you were saying about the sigils with the archangels, this is an alternate cover of an artist that I like. He made like just some other art that I might use for this book. And the little orbs you see in those colors, those are actually the sigils for the archangels.
Oh yeah.
So that's really, it's a little fun fact. I'm holding the Mutus Liber there. But as far as giving you guys an exclusive on a page, my favorite page, that performing fallen angel page, I had someone do a test coloring job and I just love it.
Wow, that's
And
incredible.
yeah, and the details when you get up close, you can really see it's just very painterly. And just like, I just think it's so beautiful.
It is beautiful.
And it definitely just depicts.
You like it too, Kat?
Oh, is it
Got the kitty going
so
there.
cute.
Down here.
Oh, that's like my cat. She's so horrible.
Down here. Oh. She just woke up somehow. She's.
Oh, meow.
Yeah.
I've never heard another verbal cat like mine.
They're all unique.
But yeah, this is,
Wow. Great work.
yeah, I'm just really excited about it. It's looking really good. And you see how we inverted the colors for the wings there? I made them look like really magical. And it's like artsy. It's cool. Yeah.
And when are you shooting to release it?
ASAP. I've had a lot of drama with this book, so I had another team that kind of screwed me over.
Yeah, I've heard. I followed you on YouTube. I know. I've seen your challenges.
Thanks. Trying to get through it.
Yeah, you'll get there. You get there.
Chugging away. I mean, right now they're trying to steal like my identity. They're saying that the Lady Alchemy comic book is theirs and that they're trying to like copyright strike me. And it's like, I've been Lady Alchemy for 10 years. Like, this is about my life. Like, this is me. Like, I don't know, whatever people do to try to screw you over is what they do. But just, you know, after getting my career taken away from me and how badly that hurt, because it's not like I lost a job where it's like I worked in an office somewhere. I created Lady Alchemy, you know, like that's like a lot to me. Everyone in my family knows how much Lady Alchemy and how alchemy means so much to me in the world, and like to have that ripped from me was so hurtful. But then now to try to bring her back and then have someone, and then they try to erase me. So like all the work that I've done, they erased me from the burlesque history. Like I'm erased, and so that hurts. But then now with the comic book, I'm having the same thing issues as where my former team tried to turn the project into something they wanted, and I wasn't happy with it. And so when I got rid of them, it's like this vindictive thing where now they're trying to take it away from me and try to like copyright Lady Alchemy, and I'm like,
Oh yeah, you are a Negredo, but that's again.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm
when
still
when you're close to spiritual truths, the universe will come down hard on you.
yeah.
That's just the way it is. So, but for Lady Alchemy, you've never tried taking her to somewhere. Are there any? I don't want to say the word safe space, but like Vegas or somewhere Hong Kong where you could have.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I could definitely still perform and work. I've had a few gigs here and there. It's just different because it's not the same life. Like I had regular work. I worked every day, like at least 5 days a week, if not more, multiple gigs a day. It was like my full-time job. I was making money. I was happy. I was doing my thing. And so now it's like, sure, I'll get a performance here and there, but it's not the same life that I had. There are some people, I mean, I've had a burlesque place in Germany contact me and said that everyone's gone crazy and they're attacking me for no reason and that I'm welcome there anytime, but I've never been to Germany. So yeah, I can try. It's just not going to be the same. It's going to be tough.
Yeah. Well, I have faith in you, and I want to see you go through, and I want to see the other stages of alchemy before I give my last breath. So Martina, you got to do it.
I know.
See what happens to the heroine, the goddess in the story.
Thank you, man. That means a lot. I love to talk to people that get it. I get it. get
Yeah,
made.
yeah.
And they get the whole thing. It's not like I mean, you must have some artsiness in your life, and your wife, you know, has done some artsy stuff and, you know, been in that similar world for me. And so you kind of get the full picture. And then you, Van, studied math as well. And it's just like, you guys really get the full picture of who I am. And I really appreciate that. It's really rare to find people. They usually like to put things in boxes. You know how people do that, you know.
Hey, maybe you're in the wrong circle, because in our circles, we see it all
Really?
the time.
I love that.
Well, it's what Gnostics are about, right? We try to see the aspects, all the different aspects of everyone we meet, no matter what their politics are, what their religion is. Or, I mean, we have atheist Gnostics, we have very, very devout Gnostics. I mean, it's there, it transcends all the different boxes, you know?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Well, I mean, that's great to hear. I mean, you guys, I mean, I see a lot of people in the chat that I don't know, which is awesome. It's usually like my little group of people, but it seems like if you guys really get it, yeah, please follow me. I mean, I've got my YouTube as well. I have.
Yeah, that was my next question. Please share with the audience all your different channels and where they can find more about Lady Alchemy.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I have the two identities. My real name is Martina Markota, but I mostly was known for many years as Lady Alchemy. So there's usually two profiles that I have. On YouTube, I'll stream. I was doing some alchemy streams, but I kind of stopped because I want to kind of read and get into that a little more before I start talking about it. So yeah, you can always look up Martina Markota, Markota, Kota. And there's Lady Alchemy on YouTube as well. Same for Twitter and Instagram, Martina Markota, Lady Alchemy. Too.
The only problem is she has a blue check mark, so you have to be suspicious about these blue check marks on Twitter.
No, the Martina profile has a blue check mark because I worked in media in DC when I got blacklisted. I started working for the Daily Caller. So they give it away to media like, oh, you work in media, blue check. So that's the only reason why I have it. Lady Alchemy, which I've been much longer and been way more established, does not have a blue check mark. So
that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, audience, definitely check it out. But first, Vance, I don't know if you have a last question for Martina, but either way, thanks for being here.
Thank you so
oh,
much.
thanks. Sure. I was going to ask you, did you ever see the show on YouTube, Croatian Magazine?
No, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, a guy named Ante Jakojevic. I used to help produce that show many years ago. So and he's still at it. I mean, this is in like the mid 80s.
Awesome. Wait, what
all
is
the
it called?
Croatian culture, Croatian Magazine.
Croatian Magazine. All right.
Yeah, and it's all, you know, old Croatian culture, traditional Croatian culture, and you know, Ante is
I love that.
quite a man. So I immediately thought of him in the show when you said you were Croatian.
Cool. Thank you.
So you might enjoy that. So it's been a delight. Enjoyed you being here very much.
Yes, we have very much. And yes, for the audience, for the chat room, thank you very much for coming here. There will be an audio version. This will be available too on YouTube afterwards. I will have more information on Martina in the show notes. But yes, we are at the end. So Martina, it was really an honor to have you and an honor to finally meet you after all this time.
Yeah, it was, I mean, it really is an honor. Like I said, not many people understand me or get me. And this is just such a pleasure to talk about this. Thank you.
All right. Well, the pleasure is all ours, and good luck with everything.
Definitely. Use your light against the blight.
All right. Well, for everyone, as I always like to say, hello and goodbye as always. And I don't even know. I forgot how to get out of YouTube. Martina,
We're trapped here forever.
You're the mod now. Can you get us out of YouTube? Where is it?
I don't know. Oh, wait, it says YouTube. Stop live stream. Is that what I should do?
There you go.
Oh, that's
All right,
why
bye,
I can't
guys.
get